we would now like to invite Mr. Ratnesh Kumar Jha to please ascend the stage for his keynote speech. Ratnesh Kumar Jha, Mr. Ratnesh Kumar Jha is the CEO for Burlington Group, Southeast Asia and India. Mr. Ratnesh is an alumnus of JNU and an MBA from the Kellogg Business School. He also has an MA degree from the University of Cambridge. We request sir to please ascend the stage.
Good morning. Audible? Morning. It is always difficult to sort of take the feet after such a Laksharaji, you're such an eloquent speaker, and you speak in the language people relate to. So it's very difficult to follow suit after this. But I'm here in between the session which is going to start and the paper which we're going to release today. So I just want to give you a little bit of context as to how this session is going to go, and I'm looking at the watch here. So I'm going to use the first about 7.5, 8 minutes in terms of giving you a little bit of story, and then followed that with having our mentors who's been part of this whole white paper. And I was listening very carefully, Laksharaji, you, and I think one of the things which I picked up in that was that when you do first thing, first time, and if it is a new initiative, that needs to be recognized. After 2022 National Education Policy and the foundational NCF, there is no single organization who's given, and outside of Ministry of Education or NCERT and CBSE, not a single organization has given as detailed and as collective. And when I say collective, which means that about 750 odd educators across 6 cities, and very engaging session of many hours gone, and then further to that, gone to the policy makers to see what are these things which is really educators talking about, and then to the organizations such as NCERT and other, to make sure that in terms of whole write-up and the way you represent that or the way you touch, it is not limited to the audience or what we represent here, but also it is much elaborate. It is dealing with the equity, it is dealing with the quality, it is dealing with the sustainability. So this paper is a collective work of the educators across this city, or 750 of them, but also our academics, policy makers, and also a collective view of many of those who really outside of education domain, contributing to the education in terms of doing many things related to education technology. So a big round of applause for the mentors and the people who got involved in this. But before I start, I must compliment these 2 young men who I have seen a couple of times in the past, and I've been with Ravi's conference since the beginning. Both Aditya and Shreyans, for you to sort of set the very strong tone in the morning by having a very good speaking, the way you presented the whole conference to us. But, you know, when we start the core of this conference, the one who leads the conference, one who imagines this festival of educators, and I must tell you, I attend lots of conferences across, not in India, outside India, in Asia Pacific, outside world. This festival of the 2 days, each of us look forward to, and we plan our calendar much year ahead of this time, that this is the time, not going to go, we will miss it. And therefore, when Ravi was saying that this line of speakers and the people who are there is not something which is easy to get, but it's amazing. But I'm just quickly going to use since it came to the Sher o Shairi, so I'm going to use the Faiz Ahmad Faiz Sher for Ravi, and I have to read it, you know, so just to make sure that I don't go wrong. वो लोग बड़े खुशकिस्मत हैं जो इसकी काम करते हैं. वो लोग बड़े खुशकिस्मत हैं जो इसकी काम करते हैं या काम से आशिकी करते हैं, है ना? या काम से आशिकी करते हैं. हम जीते जी मसरूफ रहे, कुछ इश्क किया, कुछ काम किया. So all of us were working and, you know, doing something, but here is a man who really does the asiki with what he does. You know, if you go to him, he relates with you exactly the similar way he relates with somebody else in the conference room. And therefore, I feel that every time I come here, it's a great honor, it is great privilege. But I'm also cognizant to the fact that I only have 7 minutes, 17 seconds left, and I have lots to talk about. So, Mobius, right? This you see in the national education policy. A little bit of story here, and I think I'll move fast because the way the timing is. Story, it turns out, the biggest word in the human evolution is gossip. You know, जिसको हम गपशप बोलते हैं. It's easy, it comes easy. But there is a theory of gossip. The psychologists have written about the gossip, right? So when you look at evolution of human being, Neanderthals who came in 700,000 before time now, and then you've had sapiens who came in about 400,000 later, and 70,000 when Neanderthals extinct. The reason of that extinction was the only thing which differentiate them from sapiens was this whole idea to communicate, the whole idea to collaborate, the whole idea to make a network. And therefore this gossip theory, which always used as a horizon of the evolution in a way or other, becomes very important for us. In today's fast-forward AI discussion, which was happening a little while ago, one of the things which has been spoken in AI is that anybody who understands prompts would be the one who's going to be. What's prompt? Prompt is the gossip. You're gossiping with the system. So you gossip, say, which is the biggest education festival? ScooNews, right? That's come. Who comes in the great educators? Who's the best educator? Colonel Sekhar must be thinking it's his name, it's going to come in. You know, that perhaps is really left for the machine to see how exactly the contribution really gone. So here is a conversation which is really happening. You know, so Colonel Sekhar, no pun intended, but I think this is really how it's really evolving in terms of our whole idea of that basic which was there earlier has not changed. So this Mobius symbol, which has been taken as part of the national education policy, is nothing but about the perpetuity of that knowledge building and that network building. And therefore it was taken very, in a time when India is really becoming, big in terms of story. But I'm going to come to mentors, but let me just go straight to the time leap, quickly moving, that we're talking about 2047, 2013. The children in the school today are the ones who are going to go in terms of the adults when the 2047 comes. 2047 is very important because there is a civilization shift happening here. And I talked about earlier as well. If you look at this globe, and this is very well done from the 0 AD to now, how things are shifting from south to east. This is the movement which is how the civilization's actually gone. It moved from east to west. There are discussions happening from north to south, and incrementally the center which is going to become is right at the east, at the center, which is where India and China. So that's a civilization shift which you really see happening. And therefore these things are becoming very, very important. Within that, India is very, very strongly placed. Your average per capita is going up. Your general way of looking at your basic economic and global setting is really changing. You have economic indicators suggesting that you're doing very well. And therefore the discussion is about the decade and how do you play with the humanity and how do you play with the whole AI in a way that it becomes real accelerator for you is a question in front of you. There are lots to talk, but there's one thing which I'm going to talk, and I think I will stay to that. There are many slides in this. This is a unique time. This is the first time in the history of humanity you are talking about multi-generational intervention. This whole Gen Z, millennials, baby boomers. And the problem is that how do you communicate? How do you look at communicating in terms of each other? How do you look at having a multi-generational communication happening? And that's the kind of discussion which is happening in a context of another generation added to that, which is the technology as a generation, which cuts across all the generation, but that's also added to that fifth or the sixth paradigm there. So how do you look at that technology enabling this whole communication is a question in front of humanity. And therefore, it is not a fearing question, it is a question for us to reset ourselves, to see how this multi-generational question can be answered. And in a context of what we're trying to do here is to continue to have these interventions through not only looking at the basic sort of setting of the typical race examination and all of what we do in a normal set of learning outcome delivery, but be able to drive some sustainable habits is really what has been spoken about. And I think Lakshra ji also was sharing that these are this is not the time where only the outcome can be judged because you're trying to look at certain race to be won. Here is a resetting time. There are certain habits not to be really having, and you have to go to the level of that child to learn that habit, or you have to have that multi-generational question being answered to have that communication going. Post-COVID, we have seen this addition of parents that's coming out, something which is very, very evident now. They are more involved. And therefore, this whole ground framework of NEP or 2020, which is being set in India, is very leading and very important. This is the first time in the history of India we're trying to look more towards East, frameworks generating from here. Why is that the John and Ken continues to be the name? Why is that Ratnesh and Amrita not the name in the dictionary of what is happening in the world? And therefore, the question of this framework is very important. Setting up this whole new knowledge and a global perspective from a question of what you see as a framework here is a very important part of discussion today happening. And therefore, what we have tried doing is that we'd gone together and said, let's do first thing first. Let's read what is happening. What is that which are academics, and what is that collective view of national education policy is coming? And we made an effort of not only going and reaching out to the educators, we made sure that each of our educators participating they go through the document, they read the document, and then they actually look at the tools given onto the document. So the document, what you see and what you're going to release as a white paper, is a very indicative first step to in the resetting time, the first time to be able to make an effort that are the frameworks of India, not the global frameworks? Are the policies of India, not the policies of world? Are the benchmarking education system of this world is not India? So those are the kind of questions we've tried to dwell when we looked at all these and calling this out. And there are inputs if we need to give it to policymakers. We have taken that. But when we went to them asking this question, they started telling us that, try doing things which does not only lie on one of the corner of the bench. So I asked these people, what do we do? They said, give us example. We don't get example. We get enough Gyan, ENY, KPMG, all of the big guys come in and give us all the papers, which essentially lies on the table. Would you be able to look at these documents, be able to tell us how will it get implemented? So with the help of our mentors, with the help of our educators, we managed to qualify and give some example in this paper, and you'll go through that to see how well it has come out. So I think I'll stop here, but I just want to say the last sentence. This is the resetting time. And I saw some coding here. This is a resetting time for the country. This is a resetting time for the civilization. It is shifting to East. It is where India is getting at the center because of the way the country is. And therefore, any policy which essentially helps the knowledge, education, or building competency really going to become the benchmark in the future. And each of you will be contributing to that. And therefore, where else can you set up this whole white paper and give you guys, all of you, to tell us what more should we be doing directionally? So it's a very humble effort of ScooNews and Burlington, not a very famous name for white papers and researchers to do, and we have done doing for. But as I said, this is the first time you judge with the paper, don't judge with the name, right? So if you see the paper and if you could give us the contribution to say what can be in the future, and then say that this kinds of paper sets the benchmark for the organization in the future. That's going to be our win. So thank you so much for patiently listening. I have 2 minutes left, and I want to be not kind of taken out from the stage by doing this. So I will request all our mentors to sort of be here. And I think, can you put that slide, the mentor slide here? Yeah. The release of the paper. Let's just get all the mentors here. Amrita ma'am here. All of you here. Ravi, why don't you come here? Ma'am, somebody has a list to call the name. Aditi ma'am, Colonel Sekhar, Arijit. Yes. Arunap, Gurmeet ma'am, Urvashi ma'am. I'm here.